It's good to see so many of you here, and I hope that you have a good day today. Now, what does a good day look like for you? What are things that are part of a good day? What are things that are part of a good day for you? Isla? Having birthdays, yes. Though, birthdays are fun. That's good. Anyone else? All right. I'm going to change the. Yes. What's part of a good day? Going on a hunt. Yes. That sounds exciting. I have a boy that likes to go on a hunt. All right. What are some good things that you can do today? What are some good things that you can do? That's a question that all of us should think about. What are good things that you can do today? Yes. Be kind. Ooh, that's a tough one sometimes, isn't it? Like, is it always easy to be kind with your sister? Not. Oh, she seems like a nice person. Being kind sometimes is hard. Good. What else can we do? Yes. Oh, that's a good one. Sharing can be so hard sometimes. That's a good thing to do. What's a good thing to do? Cartwheeling's a good thing to do. That depends on who you are. It is a bad thing to do if you're in my shape, my ability. Okay, that's okay. So it depends. What are more? So we can be kind. We can share. What are more good things? Yes, sir. Oh, that's an excellent one. Helping your mom, helping others. Not your mom. That's good. Your dad sometimes needs help. Your friends, helping other people. Sometimes it's as simple as holding the door for someone. Helping others. Good, Colson. Oh, that's a really good. Praying for others. Those are good things that we can do, and we should do. Praying for other people, that's a good thing to do. All right. Now, every time that there is a good thing to do, that means there's also something that is not good that you could choose. And so that's simply making choices. What are some choices that you've made today already? Have you made any choices? Owen? Yes, what to eat for breakfast, Is it going to be chocolate-coated sugar balls or frosted flakes, What's another choice that you may have made? Yes? Go ahead, Eden. Yes. Is that what you're going to say as well? Yeah, everybody got dressed up ready for church, and that's good. That's a choice. And for some of us, we just put on whatever is laid on the bed. Just kidding, that doesn't happen. All right, so you have to make choices. And so my encouragement for you today is to always choose good. So you can always choose. There's always choices, and my encouragement is this: always choose the right. Always choose what is right. All right? So I want you to always choose what is right, not what is wrong. So when you are selfish, that's wrong. When you're sharing, that's right. All right. So I'm going to have to put my... Always choose what is right. So you have the option of being selfish, that's wrong, or sharing, that's right. You have the option of speaking unkindly, mean things, sometimes exactly what we feel like saying is sometimes wrong, or we can speak kindly, and that's right. And so let's see. Always choose right, okay? Now, I need a volunteer to choose one of my hands. You have to remember, always choose right, okay? Someone else. Are you sure? Why? choose right. You know, that's very important. Rights and lefts are still confusing a little bit. What do you think, Ted? This one? Are you sure? This is great. Which one do you want? Imagine that. In life, you're always facing choices. And there's always a right and generally a wrong. Some of those choices matter more than others. Raise your hand if you want to always choose right. Even sometimes when we choose wrong, we want to choose right. All right, keep those hands up. Now, if you want to choose right, you better grab a candy before you go back. Now, when you're unwrapping these, the right thing to do is not put the wrapper on the floor, okay? When you make decisions, always choose what is right. Choose what is good, all right? So if you want a little butterscotch candy before you go back to your parents, you can do that. And I should say, just before, just before we go back, I want you to think of a verse. It's the last verse in our sermon today, and it is simply this. Often when we think of doing something wrong, it is sinning. In this case here, this verse says this: the person who knows what they should do and doesn't do it sins. So when you know there is something good you should do and you don't do it, you're actually doing something wrong. So let's do right today. Come on up and grab a candy before you go back. Good morning, and welcome to each one who is here. I hope that Children's Minute had something for each of us. Just a reminder that you're going to face choices today. Someone starts saying something about another person, and you're going to have the choice. You're going to have a choice to whether you feed the gossip or whether you whether you choose not to participate. You're going to have the choice of speaking generously about other people or otherwise. And so this morning, I just encourage each of us to think about the last verse that we'll be getting to in the sermon today, and that is simply this. And you heard it, those of you in the Children's Minute. The one who knows to do good and doesn't do it, to that person it is sin. I greet you this morning in the name of our sovereign God, the one who is in control of all things. He is a providential God. He, in his wisdom, directs all things. In his love, he controls all things. He is omnipotent. He is able to do anything. And the amazing thing is that he abundantly cares for you and me. And sometimes we fail to trust that. And sometimes we fail to believe that he actually cares. When the hard things come, it's easy for me to see the hard thing and say, God, where are you? Why are you not caring? It is hard to trust him sometimes when things simply don't make sense, or when life is confusing, or simply because you and I were created for another world. We were not created for this place to navigate these hard things, and so it's easy to forget the goodness of God that we sung about just a few minutes ago. It's easy to forget that goodness sometimes while we are on our journey through life. I so much appreciated all three songs the worship team led. Thank you, Derek, and to the team. But those are hard things we sang about a little bit. When I think about the goodness of God, pardon me, the goodness of God, I think of good times also. But in that song we sang, I love your voice. And Every one of us would say that, would we not? I love the voice of God. Sometimes that voice is chiding. Do we love that? Sometimes it's saying, Calvin, you're wrong. Do I love that? Calvin, you need correction. Do I love that? Sometimes, well, this is what we sang. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire. Do we love the voice of God when it leads us through a valley in the shadow of darkness? Do we then love it? It says, you have led me through the fire in darkest night. You are closer than no other. And the truth is, I do love his voice even then, because it is in that dark night. There are times that I've perhaps faced something difficult, and I've heard this from so many believers who have testified of the grace of God in trial, where they've said, I cannot imagine walking this road without Jesus. I cannot imagine being in this situation without his presence. Many of you here can testify to that. And so we can sing of his goodness even during hard times. And the second song, of course, just this confession of needing God, needing him. Such great reminders, such great songs. Do you ever feel like you are on the road that is pictured on the slide behind me on the wall? The road that is so uncertain, so unclear. Do you ever feel like you are traveling into a thick fog or into a dark night? You cannot see more than the one step in front of you. Perhaps you have felt that. You're not sure how long the road is or where it is taking you. None of us know the future, and that is, of course, what this message this morning is about, is being surrendered to God's will. Because we don't know what today holds. We don't know what tomorrow holds. And the only thing that we can know with certainty is that life is uncertain. We don't know when that difficult thing comes. We don't know when it's going to be us that is standing in the darkest of nights. And so this road is just an excellent picture of life. It is treacherous. We don't know what is coming at us. We can't see. And Jesus reminded us that we are, his reminder for us is simply that we are to trust him today and to not place our concern in tomorrow or in the future, but trust him today. Live well today. That was his reminder. Life is uncertain. There are no guarantees. And so it's easy to believe the lie that if we live right, if we follow God, if we do what is right and good, we will be blessed with ease, comfort, prosperity, and longevity. It's easy to think that. Sometimes something good happens that is outside of our control, and we perhaps have said it. We say, well, I must be living right. Must be doing something right. That's just not the gospel. That is just, does God give good things? Absolutely. But it is not based on your performance. Faithful people suffer. Unfaithful people sometimes live prosperously. It is simply not true or right, and it's certainly not from God, the idea that if we live well, if we do good, if we live right, that we will then have comfort and ease. And that is simply not God's concern. His concern for you and I is that we are faithful in good times as well as in difficult times. Whether we live to be 10 years old only or 90 years old is actually of little difference to him. It is in that time that he just really cares. And that time is there is no difference in light of an eternity for that. Perhaps we ought to think about eternity more than we do. It's so easy to get caught up in plans, agendas, schedules. I live, it seems, by the calendar on my phone. Things get slotted in. We look to the next month and we schedule this in. It's so easy, and those are the plans. We're planning to do that. We have holidays planned. We have schedules, agendas, busyness. The things of this life, of this world, it is so easy to get so caught up that we fail to think about eternity. And this life here is our passageway into eternity. Eternity is real for each person. It's coming. And it is in this life that we will pass through and enter eternity. We should think about that. It is in this life where our decisions, what we decide today, can have eternal consequences. I remember an old saying, I'm not sure, it might have hung on Mom's wall somewhere. Only one life 'twill soon be past. Only what's done for Christ will last. And that's true, such a simple thing. We get busy trying to do good things. We get busy. We have businesses to manage. We have employers to answer to. We have so many things of this world. And so sometimes we fail to focus on the things that we cannot see. In 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 18, Paul reminds us where he's just about to talk about heaven in chapter 5, and he says in chapter 4, he says this, "We look not at the things that are seen, but rather the things that are unseen. The things that are seen are transient. The things that are seen are temporary. But the things you can't see are eternal." And that's true. It is in your actions, even the things that we can't see. The kindness, you can see a person doing the kindness. You can't actually perhaps see the virtue of it. There are eternal aspects to that. Life on earth is so very short, and when compared to eternity, we have this moment, we have this day, we have today, and so choose well. Jesus said this, "What does it profit a person if they gain the whole world but lose their own soul? Or what should a person give in exchange for their soul? You are not just a human being, you are an eternal soul." That's what you are. You are created in the image of God. That's what you are. Regardless of the labels that other people may have put on you, that does not, this is just something I've thought of a little bit. You are created in the image of God, and sometimes humans put labels on other people. And they cause people to believe that they are something that it is not. But the clothing that we are wearing, if you look on the label that is on it, it tells you what it actually, the shirt you're wearing, you look on the label and it'll say, 50% cotton or polyester or whatever it is. That's the truth. The label that matters is what God says because He created you. Someone else can say about my shirt, they can say it's made out of satin or silk. It's not true. It isn't. It's like a cotton t-shirt. That's the truth because the label says that, and that label is created by the creator of the shirt. It's put on there by, and so what others say doesn't matter. You see, choose well today. And so this morning, I'm excited to share with you some encouragement as to how we ought to live in the kingdom of heaven while we are yet on earth. How do we stay focused? How do we live in the world, but not of it? In 1 John chapter 2, he says this, "Do not love the world." Oh, it's so easy to do. Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. And it goes on, because everything that is in the world is earthly. And in James chapter 4, earlier in the chapter from which we're drawing today, it says this, "You adulterous people." Now, adultery is, of course, it's a sin. And what he's saying is, when I commit myself to the world, to the things of this world, when I am dancing with the world, when I am buying into the patterns of the world, he says that I am like an adulterer with God, because he is from the king, he is from heaven. And so he wishes for me to be sold out 100%, fully committed to the kingdom of God. And so in James chapter 4, he says he yearns jealously over our spirit when we are giving in to the things of the world. And so this morning, from James chapter 4, verses 13 to 17, I've entitled the sermon, If the Lord Wills. If the Lord wills. It's such a basic sermon, I suppose. It is the last of the verses in chapter 4, and the entire chapter is encouraging us to be surrendered to God and his will. In verse 4, anyone who chooses to be a friend of the world becomes an enemy of God. Verse 6, God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. Verse 7, submit yourselves to God. Verse 8, draw near to God. Verse 10, humble yourselves therefore to God. Verses 11 and 12, do not be a judge of other people. Who are you to speak evil of others? And it's in context of surrendering ourselves to God. And finally, in verse 14, your life is a mist, it is short, and therefore be surrendered to God. Over and over, we are reminded to be surrendered to God, and yet it is so easy to make our own plans. So if the Lord wills, it is so easy to make plans as if somehow we're in control, and it throws us off when things don't go the way we planned, and we think that's not how it's supposed to be, forgetting that we're not in control. In fact, in Proverbs chapter 16, it says this, in their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. In other words, we can make all our plans, but God establishes what his desire and his will. Proverbs chapter 3, it says, and so trust in the Lord with all of your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. 1 Peter, therefore humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God. If the Lord wills, it is a command to give ourselves entirely to the way of God, to be surrendered. Let's read verses 13 to 17. Now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go into this or that city, we'll spend a year there, we'll carry on business and make money. Why, you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogant schemes. All such boasting is evil. If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them. And that is the word of God. Now, is it wrong to plan to go to a city for the next year, to establish a business, to make money, to this or that, to have a business plan? Certainly not. In verse 15, it says the same thing. It says, except you ought to say if it is the Lord's will. Excuse me. It's such a simple thing. This is simply a reminder that in all things be surrendered to the providential sovereignty of God. In all things. And I often think of this when I say something like this. Yeah, we'll be there next week. We'll do that. We'll be there. We'll do that. And this comes to mind. I think it feels kind of tacky for me always to say, well, yeah, if it's God's will, I'll be there. because this passage is about the condition of my heart more than as much as the words that I speak. However, I do try to have a habit of saying, I plan to. It reminds me, we can plan to do that next week. We'll plan to be with you next week or something along that, because it is a reminder to me that I am surrendering every day, every plan to the sovereignty of God. He is providential. He is working today, even if you don't see him. He is working. It is in verse 13. It is just a reminder. It speaks of saying, make the wisest choice. But in verse 16, as it is, you boast in your arrogant schemes. What it's saying is this: when you make plans outside of the will of God, outside of being surrendered to him, those plans may work, but they are, according to James, he calls them arrogant schemes. The themes that I picked out of this passage are the following. God's desire for us is that we are humble. In fact, earlier in this chapter, he says he opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And so submit yourselves to his plan. Perhaps it is different than our desire. Sometimes that's the case. God is sovereign. He is at work, and you can trust him. Seek him. Seek him in humility. So when you are making plans to go to this city or that, lay them before him. Seek his peace, even in the small things. Do not make your decisions on your own. Make the habit of every day, every decision you make, lay that before him. Saying, God, give me wisdom. And there are times that I am certain. There are times that choices are made by a person who is surrendered to him. They don't even know that it was God who did the moving. It was because that's how his Spirit works. It is sometimes invisible. But the surrendered person is a channel through which that Spirit works. So, who are you? What is your life? You are a mist. I am now getting to the age of an old person, clearly, because 10 years is a very short time. If I would ask my 13-year-old, is 10 years a short or a long time? Without question, he would say long. Because that's, most of his life. Time is passing very quickly. Life is a mist. One of these, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about the hard things that are coming, but I do a little bit. And I think I said this recently, that I know that one of these days it's going to be us standing at the valley of the shadow of death. That's reality. My parents are elderly. I don't know if they have 10 years left. 10 years is a short time when you're in your 80s. And so, what is life? It is a mist. A mist is uncertain, and it certainly vanishes quickly. In other places, Scripture refers to life as being grass of the field that is here today and gone tomorrow. How foolish it is for us to focus on only things that are in the future. How foolish it is for us to only think of being in the city for the next year without considering today. Jesus in Matthew 6 certainly said, do not worry about tomorrow. Does that mean you shouldn't make a business plan? That's not what he's saying. He's saying be surrendered today. be surrendered today as you make that plan. Life is uncertain. It is a mist. It is like grass of the field. So when we surrender to him, I think of where Jesus was teaching about not one bird falls to the ground without our Father noticing. And what he's saying, and then he goes on to say, are you not of much more value than birds? Your Father cares for you. Our life is short. And Jesus, in that illustration, I'm sure his point is, he wants to make this point that we're of greater value than many birds. He, in fact, says that, and that he cares for us. But don't miss the fact that the bird fell to the ground. The bird still fell. And so sometimes in our lives, we're facing something hard, and we're saying, God, why might you allow this? That's a fair question. Hard things come to all people. Hard things come, and God cares. Just because the bird falls does not mean that he does not care. In fact, it is sometimes in those darkest times that we've experienced the greatest comforts from him. Life is uncertain. Place it in his hands. Place it personally in his hands. In the dark of the night, place your mind, place your being into the hands of God. Place your family's lives into his hands, understanding that there are no guarantees. Life is uncertain. Live today well. Don't put off until tomorrow what would encourage a person today. Life is uncertain. Let's collectively choose to do that as a body as well, as a church. To not only focus on the future, but let's live as a church family well today. And so, it says in verse 15, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will. Stay surrendered. If we will live and do this or that, if it is God's will. That is a spirit of our heart. You don't have to say that every time, but it is a spirit of our heart, of surrendering daily all things to him, rather than to make our own plans. James again calls it arrogant schemes. All such boasting is evil. And I'm not going to spend time on the parable of the rich fool, it's often called, the man who was so successful, and he said, I'm going to build bigger barns. I'm going to fill these barns. I'm going to take early retirement, and I'm going to eat, drink, and be merry. And Jesus said, look, he wasn't condemning him for having the bigger barns. He was condemning him for the focus of his, maybe I shouldn't say condemning him. He was judging him for the focus of his heart. And so stay surrendered as we make plans. And finally, verse 17. Anyone who knows good, the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, to them it is sin. My question is simply this. All of us have choices to make. And all of us can do good. Who is it in your life that needs you? You might think, nobody needs me. That is a lie from the devil. You are a needed person. Who is it in your life that needs you? Who is it that needs encouragement? Reach out to that person. Who is it that needs prayer? Pray. Pray often. Pray hard. Pray bluntly. That's it doesn't have to be flowery. It doesn't have to be fancy words. It is just a blunt sometimes brutal prayer. If you read through the Psalms, the things that that David said to God when he was discouraged, he was brutally honest. Pray that way. Do not be consumed with worries of the future, but rather pray, surrender, and do good. How do we live like this? Two ways. Every day, surrender yourself to God. Every day, give yourself to Him. Every day, recognize that your life is His. He is sovereign. He is providential. He is always on time. He doesn't make mistakes. Surrender to that God, and He loves you. And the second point, always choose the right. To him who knows to do good and doesn't do it, to that person it is sin. Always choose the right. Do good. Encourage someone today. It can be in your own house. Let them know, hey, you're doing good. I appreciate you. Send someone that text. I appreciate you. Could be a person that you don't always agree with. No problem. We don't always agree with anyone. The deepest relationships have disagreements. Send a person a message. Call your parents. Do good. Do good. And James says that is how we live in the kingdom. God bless you as you continue to seek God's will in your life and as you live in His kingdom.